Well, as you can guess, despite congressional approval, the Clunkers program is facing criticism from the right as well as the left. Complaints that consumers aren't buying enough American cars or that the cars that are being sold aren't fuel efficient enough. Among the voices getting the most attention right now, that of the car coach. You may well know Lauren Fix. She is editor-in-chief of CarZen.com, also the woman behind the Car Smarts programs, and she joins us now live from Pittsburgh. Lauren, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
It's great to have you with us. Margaret just outlined one of the complaints. This came from Tom Coburn, the Republican from Oklahoma. Essentially, it comes down to the fact that good cars, viable cars, are being trashed altogether because they're trade-ins.
Right, and it's a shame when you think of a big glob of unusable rubber, aluminum, plastic, and metal just filling up landfills. Just really irritates me. But it's a shame that the American car companies aren't getting the sales. The sales are going overseas. And it's a shame that all these usable cars that could be given to charity, could be given to people who just can't afford a car, are the ones that are not getting the opportunities. Now,
Lauren, you say that sales are going overseas. 45% of the new cars purchased under the Clunkers program, according to the Department of Transportation, those come from Chrysler, Ford, GM, the big three. And half of the Japanese cars, according to the department, that are purchased under this program were made here in the U.S. There's an argument that this is an economic driver.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a shame that the sales are going overseas, but we have to look at the bigger picture here, and I think this is what a lot of consumers forget. When you're looking at purchasing a Honda or a Toyota, which is a big chunk of the cars that are being sold on this Cash for Clunkers program, these vehicles are being built in the U.S. They're being built in Tennessee, they're being built in Ohio, they're being built in areas of Michigan. So you think about it, they are giving jobs to people, and although I do love the Ford Fusion, it's being built in Mexico. So we have to look at where these cars are being built. So that's what a lot of consumers are doing now. They're looking at the window sticker because the information is on it. And many cars, even Mazda, is 45% built here in the U.S. So you have to look at the components. There is no vehicle built today that is 100% North American made with all North American components.
Lauren, the other major factor here regarding complaints has to do with fuel efficiency, that these cars being purchased aren't fuel efficient enough, if that's the right term. Turning again to the Department of Transportation numbers, it says on average there's a 61% improvement on fuel efficiency. Is that enough in your mind? Is that the equivalent of taking enough CO2 out of our air and lessening our dependence on foreign oil enough to justify this program?
No, I don't think it's enough, because honestly, most people that I've talked to, and I get hundreds and hundreds of emails from people daily, people are telling me they love it. They're trading in old Explorers that get like 12 miles to the gallon, and they're buying newer Explorers, or they're buying Equinoxes, or they're buying other SUVs. We're not finding the bulk of people purchasing hybrid vehicles, diesel vehicles, which would make more sense. If we all were forced to the next purchase to be a diesel car, if just 1/3 of consumers would switch to clean diesel, which is what they're selling now in all 50 states, we would save enough oil that we wouldn't have to import any oil at all. So, I mean, those are the type of things that people aren't considering when they're buying these cars. They're thinking basically it's a gift from the government, and they're very excited to use our money and go ahead and turn it around. Actually, the funny thing is we're getting taxed on it, the dealer's getting taxed on it, and it's already our tax dollars in order to get a new car.
Lauren, I've seen recent interviews with you on Fox and CNN, and one of your biggest complaints is the environmental aspect here, not dealing with emissions, but what is left behind. We're trashing these cars. On one hand, they don't go to any good use. On the other hand, you've pointed out the evils of sodium silicate and the fact that this is sitting around now in landfills or junkyards somewhere.
Right. Now, sodium silicate is liquid glass. And basically what they do is they'll pour the oil out of the engine of your vehicle. They'll fill it with this liquid glass, and they'll run the engine until it dies. Now, the most value of any scrap car is the engine or the components. If you've ever had a part of your engine fail and you're expecting a very large bill, they'd go to a salvage yard and get that part. Well, if that part is unavailable, it's basically landfill. And what I've been talking about is a list of fuels and toxins that are, in some cases, being drained. In other cases, they're just crushing them into big globs of unusable rubber, aluminum, plastic, and metal. And the whole idea of this was to make the environment cleaner. But if we're filling landfills with battery acid, mercury switches, engine oil, coolant, because engine oil can be used in other areas of the car, and they can't get it all out, coolant or antifreeze brake fluid, power steering fluid, transmission fluid, rear axle fluid, gasoline or fuel, which is usually emptied, and then air conditioning refrigerant, which is extremely hazardous to the environment, especially in older cars. That's what's part of our ozone problem. That doesn't make any sense to turn them into gigantic blobs, fill them into landfills, when the whole goal of this was to have less exhaust emissions and improve the environment and less demand on foreign oil. So I don't think we're hitting very deep into the mark on this, because when you really look at the true numbers, if this were to be as successful as they initially planned, and it was done right, like the Germans did it, because the Germans required that you purchase German cars, it would have improved our economy. It would have helped reduce metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, as well as gasoline savings, and it would save consumers. But the plan was put together too quickly. It wasn't read through, and no one thought about the ramifications of those trashed cars.
Lauren, also want to get your perspective, given your unique inside information about the auto industry and the life cycle of automobiles here in the U.S. Is the parts industry taking a major hit here? These are some cars that maybe shouldn't be on the road, but I'd imagine some percentage of their parts are still viable for use.
Absolutely. Actually, the person who's taking the hit is not the automotive aftermarket. It's really the recyclers. Many of the ones that crush them think this is great because they basically are charging for a fee. But what's really hurting is consumers that can't afford cars. It's going to raise the price of the used car market. The salvage yards, the recyclers that usually sell these components off, would sell them off the engine for thousands of dollars to people who may have damage to a perfectly good car with a bad engine. But not just that, is once they detox these cars, there's nothing left, and the scrap value is about $80. And the 7,700 recyclers were basically sold a bill of goods that they were going to have this amazing, grand, big payday from all these car manufacturers coming in. Many of them haven't gotten paid yet, not just the dealers, but also the recyclers. And the person that's handling, or the company that's handling all of this is, believe it or not, Citigroup. They're the ones that are handling all of the paperwork and all of the exchange of dollars, and they're just starting to trickle out the money, and the dealers are very concerned. Many of them are offering straight-up deals for the full $4,500 or $3,500, and they're reselling the cars or taking them to auction because it's also affecting the auction business.
Now, Lauren, I want to extend this interview a little bit because explain, please, this tie to Citigroup that you're making here with the program itself.
Believe it or not, Citigroup is the one that was bailed out by the government because they almost went out of business. Citibank,
right,
as we all know it, they are the ones that was put in charge. Somebody had to control the money coming in from the government to repay the dealers, to pay the recyclers for the destruction of the car. So somehow this money has to change hands, and obviously you want a bank to do that. You don't want just some business to do that. So Citigroup was the one that got the agreement to handle that. And they had many computer crashes. They've had lots of logistical issues. Many dealers that I've spoken with are very unhappy with the fact that they haven't received any money yet. But people have taken the cars off the lots and driven them away, and the cars have been taken to recycling yards, but they still haven't received their $4,500 or $3,500. And by the way, that dollar amount is taxable as income to the dealer, just as you, the consumer, is being taxed on that $3,500 or $4,500. Because when they figure the cost of the car, it's the cost of the car plus tax. Then they would take off any incentives or rebates.
So because of these delays, Lauren, the $755 million that the Obama administration first announced was used so quickly under this program, you think there's a lag time, maybe more money was actually unaccounted for that was given back and forth between dealers and buyers, and simply the dealers couldn't get the information to the government quickly enough because of these paperwork delays?
Well, the first day that the computer system opened at 7 a.m. on that Friday, that people didn't really aware that they were open for the dealers to sign in. The system crashed 20 minutes in and was done for the rest of the weekend. Once it came up, the deals were already starting being made with consumers, but the dealers are not receiving money yet. The $4,500 has not been received to them as income to rebate them, basically, for selling a car discounted to a consumer. So to this day, they're just starting to trickle out, and that is just as of yesterday, which is Thursday.
Okay, Lauren, a lot to discuss here. How about if we make a date to talk sometime after Labor Day when we're looking at another extension for this program?
Well, let's hope there isn't an extension, because if they keep making this wide open to a limited amount of people, it's really unfair. I've written in my blog, I've also written in my newsletter, which you can access through my website, that there's so many people that are excluded, and more people that I'm talking to are very angry because their neighbor's getting a new car because they had an old clunker, but because they leased, or they've always been really wise about buying a good car that had good fuel economy or a hybrid, they're excluded from this program. So if you had an older Prius that has 100,000 miles on it, it's not eligible.
I will take that as a yes to our invitation.
Yes, I will be back.
Lauren Fix is the car coach joining us live from Pittsburgh. A pleasure to have you with us, Lauren.
Thank you, Tyler.
Very interesting insight there.